Hello, and today we'll continue with A Fall from Grace. Nine months later, despite the grandeur of its buildings, Castle Hillsford felt like a small town trying its best to stand out from its neighbors. It was a crossroads for many travelers heading to the southern coast or eastward to larger market towns, and many would take up lodgings there for the night, having heard promising talk of their tasty local food and friendly hospitality. Most of its appearance matched that of any other village the bandits had encountered since leaving Hiddingstone Forest a couple months earlier. Many old and crooked Tudor houses decorated each street, along with a dozen plain buildings made out of the local stone. However, the main square and its surroundings boasted elegant Baroque and neoclassical architecture, which was such a contrast to the west it was almost comical. It felt as if two different towns had been plastered together in a clumsy attempt to make the end result look more impressive. Hillsford certainly had a lot of history to it, along with the imposing main square. It boasted an old fort dating back to the 15th century and a stately manor house just a few miles outside the town walls. This was the building Cedric, Victor, and Dion heard had first heard talk of back at the Hunter Inn in Hiddingstone on the night of Cedric's first mugging. The building that was to host the much anticipated grand masquerade ball in 3 days' time. Things were already looking hectic. The wind whistled along the busy streets, each filled with a sort of frenzy as new characters kept appearing, transporting folks from far and near who had journeyed to the town after hearing talk of the open invite event. Likewise, there was excitement and a spark of joy on the faces of all those who were gathered round the main church that afternoon, despite the cold wintry weather. The crowd cheered as two newlyweds rushed out of the old wooden doors. One was a young rabbit whose white dress was decorated with a great amount of colorful ribbons. The other was a soldier, a tall, also wearing his bright red uniform. 50 or so yards away, Selwyn and Ridley were observing the commotion, leaning on a stone wall outlining the surrounding graveyard. 50 or so yards away, Selwyn and Ridley were observing the commotion, leaning on a stone wall outlining the surrounding graveyard. They had both donned a pair of dark overcoats to blend into the crowd and to go by unnoticed by the ever-present guards patrolling the streets. Selwyn was wearing a tricorn, whilst Ridley had donned his usual feathered hat. There wasn't much cause to be worried about being spotted, though, since the bandits had kept a low profile ever since leaving their old camp behind them, following Dion's orders. Their objective wasn't just to avoid attracting too much attention, but most importantly, they didn't want to give any hints as to where they might be headed. The masquerade were no strangers to being pursued by any local officers of the law, but they were also well aware that the guards might still be searching for Cedric at Lyson's behest. The coyote had been classed as a missing person upon fleeing his hometown, thus meaning they had to practice the utmost caution at all times. Since leaving the old forest, everything had gone smoothly, with nary a single mistake on their behalf, which had left the group feeling very confident, if a bit nervous, at the prospect of a heist on such a scale as the one they had been planning. It's always lovely witnessing a happy occasion like this, don't you think, Wid? I hope those two will go on to live a good, happy life together. The bear took a while to reply, lighting his pipe. You know how I feel about marriage. Despite the cynical answer, Selwyn kept talking following his train of thought. I used to go watch people's weddings back when I worked as an accountant. Did you now? What they were for? I was hardly alive back then. All I did was sit in that office all day. I wanted to escape reality and picture myself living a happier and more exciting life. I go to social gatherings, ballrooms, parties, and such, but was never able to form any meaningful bonds with anyone, so I attend these events at church, just sitting by myself and watching them unfold. Wishing I had something to look forward to. Really put an arm around the house cat, pulling him in for a gentle hug. I'm glad you've since found a crowd of misfits you could call your friends and family, said. You matter to each and every one of us more than we ever be able to say. Now, how about you and I play a little game? Which the people in that crowd would we be able to rob most successfully? That's a game I can get behind. The fellow in the top hat, he'd be an easy one. You underestimate that car call dressed in red. Unempty his pockets the blink of an eye. Or you too. The bandits jumped at the sudden sound of a familiar voice and turned to see Cedric walking their way, carrying a sack of his white soda. At Dion's and Whitley's suggestion, the coyote had now taken to wearing a dark red coat and a gold leaf tricorn hat, coupled with a pair of cream-colored pantaloons and new hunting boots. He'd grown out his hair, which he now wore in a ponytail, and displayed a newly grown mustache and goatee. At a glance, he looked nothing like any of his old portraits, copies of which Lysander had no doubt given the guards when first instructing them to be on the lookout for his former friend. There was also something different in his posture, and while compared to Cedric, the lion had last met mostly an air of confidence and charm he meant to adopt after getting used to living and working with the other bandits, and ease at knowing he could now command anyone's attention if he wanted to. Upon reaching his friends, the coyote handed over the sack so that the bear could inspect its contents. Here you go, Wid, all the clothes you asked me to get for the ball. As he spoke, he juggled a tiny silk purse in his gloved hand. The bear crossed his arms, shaking his head, yet unable to contain a smile. Dion said no pricking purses, said. Cedric grinned, unfazed by Whitley's words. What Dion doesn't know can't hurt him, can I? And what if he were to find out? He'd forgive me. Of course, you know I have my ways. The bear burst out laughing. You liar. Your dick is good, but I ain't that good, said. When did I talk about sex? He forgive me since I'm such an honest and charming lad. After rapidly eyeing his surroundings, as he spoke, upon noticing there was no one else in their vicinity, the coyote leaned forward to give Whitley a quick kiss. My, we really have corrupted you, boy. As if nothing has transpired, Cedric moved to the bear's side and patted Selwyn's left shoulder, beaming at the friendly house cat. How are you feeling today, Sel? Whatever the contents of that drink Hollis gave you were, I hope they did the trick with that headache. Oh, thank you, Cedric. I'm doing much better. It's a shame my body often hates me as much as it does. Offer to get Selwyn something. Would you like me to get you something to eat? You need to make sure you have enough strength to get you back to camp. The cat raised his right hand dismissively. Don't worry about me. I had myself a Cornish pasty I bought from a vendor just half an hour ago. It was really good, actually. I ended up getting one too. This rogue seduced me into it. Do you regret eating it? No, I just... Wait then. What on earth are you complaining about? I wasn't complaining, you silly goose. So you're saying you had no opinion, and you. So you're saying you had no opinion, and yet you had to voice it anyway. I see. The bear rolled his eyes, annoyed at not being able to think of a quick comeback. Where's that Doberman when you need him? Anyway, enough dawdling, you lot. You mentioned Hollis just now. Where did he say he left his carrots? Just outside the southern gate. He's been stocking up on food and drink. Noted. And what about that boyfriend of yours? Where has he gone? He chose to stay with Hollis to help him out. Cedric softly extended a hand towards the bear's chest, lowering his voice. Are you planning on seducing this innocent coyote with his lover as elsewhere? Whitley sneered, imitating his comrade's seductive tone. As if Vic wouldn't get off to that. You can't fool me, you two. Plus, if I wanted to seduce you, I'd do it in my tent after having robbed a carriage on Plowman's Hill. Seemed to do the trick last time. The house cat cleared his throat, almost making the others jump out of their skin. Severin took a few steps away from the others, gesturing at them to follow him. Well, I think we're all done here. Shall we go meet up with Dion and Blake? Aye, let's. They walked over to the crowded main square, attempted to spot their leader amongst the masses that had sewn up to attend a play performed by a traveling theater company. A rickety wooden stage had been set up at the center of the square without a painted backdrop so that the actors and props they were using could be visible from all angles. A familiar canine figure slid through the crowd, was enough to greet his companions. About time, you lot. I would have shot someone if I had to stand a minute more of this awful comedy. Easy now, Blake. Where's Dion? Where do you think? Front fucking row. Try not to stand out, he says. Blend in with the crowd, he says. 7-foot tall hyena in the front row. You can't make this shit up. Shall I go fetch him? Do us all a favor. Whitley marched sternly, heading for Blake. He was already sick of the Doberman's cynical mannerisms. Why must you always pretend you hate every minute of everything? It doesn't make you more attractive. It makes you a bore to deal with. I'll break your kneecaps, you jackanapes. It's been half an hour of married couple hating each other's jokes, interspersed with the occasional women's or horror's joke. Tell me what that's good entertainment, I dare you. The bear kept silent for a few seconds. All right, you might have a point. See, I'm always right. Cedric rolled his eyes, leaving the alleged couple to their argument, and made his way to the front row, tapping the hyena on the back to get his attention. Ooh, Cedric, my lad. Is it time to leave? Have you been enjoying the play so far? The hyena chuckled. It's not exactly high art. However, I must congratulate the actors. They're doing a fine job. Of course, back in the day, I too had my fair share of atrociously written parts handed to me. Dion's unintentionally loud words caused one of the actors closest to them to glare at him upon hearing that remark. However, the bandit took no notice of this. I was forced to act out each and every one of them as convincingly as I could. I suppose I was spoiled. Whilst I was still living with my parents, Lysander and I would travel far Every couple of months to visit the grandest theaters I ever seen, and the performances were often brilliant. Cedric noticed that Bennett was still observing the actors on stage. We can wait a couple more minutes if you like. You're very kind, Cedric. However, I do not want to keep you or the others waiting for any longer. Lead the way, lad, and I'll follow. Dion tiptoed behind Cedric, crouching down as to avoid blocking the other spectators' view of the performance and apologizing profusely as he went. Once they reached the opposite corner of the square, the two were united with the others, and without wasting more time, they rapidly made their way along the noisy streets to the southern gate. It's funny, I visited this town at least a dozen times, yet I have never seen this much commotion. The wealthy bastards hosting that ball sure have done this place a favor or two. Blake leaned over, displaying a malicious grin on his muzzle. Says our wits intern hard boy. Come over there again, and I'll slice your hands off, punk. The Doberman turned to Whitley, fading outrage and placed his left hand over his mouth. Did you hear what he said to me? Yeah, my blessing said. I've been threatened, Whitley. Do something. You know, I'm starting to think you two might be the married couple that awful play was about. The moment they each set foot outside the old city gate, the bandit sighted Hollis's carriage and spied Victor and the tiger moving the last few boxes onto the vehicle. Thinking quickly, Cedric rushed up to the fox since he was looking in the opposite direction and had yet to take notice of any of them. A gloved hand covered Victor's eyes. Guess who? The fox replied jokingly, letting out an exasperated gasp. Lysander? The very same. Cedric moved his hand away, spinning his lover around to face him. Bandits, beware. Victor was unable to contain a huge grin at the sight of his boyfriend being a lovable fool. How did the journey in town go, handsome? It was all right. I managed to purchase all the clothes we'll be needing for the ball. I'm proud of you, but that should go without saying. Hollis stepped out of the carriage, holding a bottle in one hand and wiping some sweat off his forehead with the other. He looked just about ready to head back to the camp and do nothing for the rest of the day. After all. So who's cooking dinner tonight? 'Cause it's not me, I can assure you. I don't mind cooking for all of us, if you're not feeling up to it. I could fry that bacon we have left with some vegetables at the side. Bless you, I knew I always liked you from the start, lad. Unless this is just an attempt at getting into bed with me, in which case you're a rotten scoundrel. Cedric chuckled, replying confidently. Favors for favors, my dear Hollis. The tiger playfully crossed his arms, shaking his head. I knew it. I really can't trust any of you boys. The bandits kept up the banter and jokes on the way back to the campsite, following the heavy horses Hollis had borrowed from a local farmer to pull his old carriage. Victor lowered his voice, moving closer to the coyote and muttering with a hint of restlessness. Speaking of Lysander, though, we need to consider the fact he might also attend the ball. That thought had crossed my mind, but quite frankly, I think we have nothing to worry about. Within that building, he'll just be a guest like any other, and we'll all be fully disguised anyway. Oh right, I almost forgot. He most likely won't be there at all. Why is that? He's always away in early December, travels up north with his family to a property in Scotland. It's a tradition of theirs. Another property. How many estates do these fuckers even own? Cedric laughed. Too many. His parents' main residence is about an hour's journey west of our hometown, but he doesn't enjoy spending time with them as you know, hence why both of us were living with his aunt for all those months. His relatives own at least 2 other properties he mentioned, though I never visited either of them. Guards! Each of the bandits instantly turned to look in the direction the hyena was pointing at. And sure enough, on the road, far up ahead, compared to where the bandits were standing, a group of 5 or 6 figures dressed in red uniforms were approaching at a marching pace. Gentlemen, you all know what to do. At Dion's command, the group resumed their conversations, making use of their acting skills. This obviously wasn't the first time they had to put on this particular act, but they had to be even more careful now that they counted Cedric as one of their members. They crossed paths with some soldiers after having left their old hideout, though they evidently been lucky enough to not attract too much attention. They hadn't been stopped, nor had they been questioned as to who they were or where they were going. The two groups inevitably converged at long last, the bandits waiting with bated breath, praying they wouldn't be stopped. The guards looked tired and disinterested in them after what must have been a very long watch. They couldn't be bothered wasting more time before getting back to Hillsford, and a couple of them vanished out of the corner of Cedric's eye. Afternoon, sirs, and where may you be heading today? The host was crushed by the collie's voice cutting through the air around them like a razor. The guards surrounded the gang, and Dion greeted them with an elegant bow, putting on a very convincing West Country accent. Good be with you all, sirs. We're but a wandering troupe of actors on their way to the next town, doing their best to entertain and bring some happiness and excitement to poor country folk. The captain's expression remained unvaried. No women among you? I thought we've moved on as a country since the 1600s. The hyena let out a nervous laugh. His performance so far was flawless. Quite right. But alas, you encounter us during a most challenging period for our company. Our 2 female colleagues have left us only recently due to, he coughed, professional disagreements. It pains me to hear that. Now, it wouldn't usually be our place to question you like this. However, we have been given orders to look out for a group of bandits last seen a couple of days' journey northwest from here. What's more, we've been told there's about 5 or 6 of them. What are you insinuating, sir? The colleague ignored Blake's jab. Might I see any documents testifying that you are indeed actors, gentlemen? Cedric's heart began to beat faster. Dion had never mentioned owning any papers or false documents that would help them pass the traveling theater company. In fact, a couple of times they'd all gone over what to say and do should they encounter any guards. The hyena had forced them each to memorize their own fake name and had simply instructed them to repeat the name of their company and the year it was founded when questioned. He gently slid his gloved hand downwards towards the pistol he kept hidden in a leather purse tied to one of his belts. As he did so, he noticed Victor also reaching for his rapier. Things had the potential to escalate extremely fast. You may indeed, sir. Just give me a second. Dion rummaged around the small bag he was carrying, produced a piece of rolled parchment covered in stains, which he handed to the captain. The colleague inspected it, noticing the official-looking stamp the document bore. The Dionysian Theater Company, and you're Mr. Norman Winterson, I presume? The same, at your service. Lengthy moments of silence followed until the captain reached the end of the certificate. Perhaps we may attend one of your performances soon. Good luck on the rest of your journey. He handed the paper back to Dion, signaling to the others they stood, resuming their marching. Good day to you, gentlemen. The masquerade did their very best not to audibly breathe a sigh a massive sigh of relief as soon as the guards began to move, heading back to Hillsford and out of sight. My heart is racing. Dion, why the hell didn't you tell us you actually had that paper? We were scared shitless for a moment. He chuckled and turned to his partner. Sad and I both reached for our weapons at exactly the same time. Oh, I must have just slipped my mind. You're supposed to be our responsible leader. Rahina grumbled. And as such, I won't be questioned. I got us out of trouble, didn't I? Is that document actually a fake? Of course not. It's my old company certificate stamped by the local authorities. An hour later, all the bandits were sitting around the campfire discussing the day's events while also enjoying a good meal. To no one's surprise, Cedric and Victor were sitting next to each other, laughing and joking while Cedric took some long sips from his cider-filled mug, slurring his words a little. What's our next robbery? I've been itching for some rich devil's gold for weeks now. Easy now, handsome. You know you've had to stay on a down low lately for more than a couple of reasons. Aye, but I've noticed how eerily fast our previous savings ended up getting spent on food and drink. That's life, my dear. Saving up is an arduous task, and whether you have your own mouths as well as 6 others to feed, it grows tougher still. You won't be complaining in 3 days' time, Cedric. You can be sure of that. Indeed, not. It's shaping up to be our greatest accomplishment yet. Don't you dare go out disappointing me, lads. Tomorrow we'll be going over the plan. I'll be giving careful consideration to everyone's thoughts and input, so if you don't speak up, then I don't want to hear a word out of your mouth if something you do goes wrong. After that, we'll all try on our costumes to see if Weird needs to make any last-minute adjustments. Dion examined the coyote with a mischievous spark in his eye. And last but not least, Cedric. Cedric will be schooling us in the manners of upper-class society, lest we make any mistake that could prove fatal during our last time at the ball. Cedric almost spat out his drink. What? Nobody had told me about this. Relax, Cedric. What could go wrong? What bandit could be better than you to teach us how to blend in amongst a crowd of filthy aristocrats? Oh, that's not the issue, love. The coyote took a long pause before speaking up again, purposely letting tension build since Victor obviously had no idea where he was going with this. First things first, I have not made a list of subjects to teach you all, which I can then use to plan a number of short lessons. Second, I need to write a small paragraph on each subject. What the? This is extremely important. Victor snorted, poking his partner with his left elbow. You twat, you almost had me worried for a moment. The coyote kept up the banter. You might not understand, but I need my carefully constructed list and plans to rely upon when teaching anything. Severin knows what I'm talking about, don't you, Sel? The house cat nodded eagerly. Just give me a list of the subjects you want to teach, and I'd be happy to map them out and organize your lessons for you. The fox got up from the log he'd been resting on and pretended to walk away. This is too much. The geeks have been allowed to run wild and still will be flooded with charts and diagrams. Victor wouldn't know what a diagram even is. I've seen how he usually plots his heist. The jump right in and pray nothing goes wrong technique, always a classic. You, Sir Bear, are a fucking liar. Cedric addressed Dion again, his composure more serious. All joking aside, I'd be more than happy to give you all a few lessons. I'll just be a tad surreal, attempting to return to the ways of the upper classes now that I've gotten so used to living with all of you. Quite frankly, I've forgotten Ced was born a nobleman. The coyote's eyes oh the key the coyote's eyes widened. Bloody hell, I think that might be the greatest compliment anyone's ever given me. The talker ignored the comment, continuing his train of thought, especially after that cursing contest you and Blake had the other evening. Dion brought a hand to his forehead in a characteristically melodramatic gesture. Please do not remind me of that. You lot have corrupted my beloved Cedric in the most vile ruffian. Come on, Dion. You know I can be the finest gentleman if needed. Just watch. Cedric stood up, performing an elegant bow, during which he extended his right hand in Cedric's inventor's direction. Will you join me for a dance, my beloved? The fox brought his left hand to his chest. No, my good sir, I couldn't possibly. Go on, Victor. Stop fooling around and just take his hand, bitch. We all know you wanted to. Victor then took the coyote's hand and stood up at long last. But we have no music to accompany us, my dear. You would think that, wouldn't you, however? An old tiger has his ways. As if by magic, a weather and battered lute had appeared on Hollis's lap. Never know when this might come in handy. The tiger spent a few seconds attempting to tune the old instrument and then began to pluck its strings, playing a sweet, lilting melody. The dance was brief but intense. Neither of the two knew exactly what they were doing, on top of being mildly inebriated, but if anything that made things more fun. This was something they had yet to experience together, and at this precise moment, to Cedric, it felt like a fairy tale come true. He could feel Fender's soft breath mere inches away, and despite not speaking a word, the level of closeness he felt to the fox was immense. As the talker slowed down the rhythm to bring the dance to a close, the couple exchanged a brief but passionate kiss. You two little birds really couldn't be sweeter if you tried. That was beautiful. The rest of the bandits all nodded or eyed, in agreement, not wanting to ruin the atmosphere by joking or clapping loudly. They all got up from their seats, handing their plates to someone who briskly headed for the stream to rinse everything. Various options here contain adult content. If you prefer to skip this, please select the SFW option. I have to skip. I can download the game and look at all these for yourself. I'm gonna skip. An hour later, Cedric was lying on his tense bed next to Victor after a quick evening wash, bathing in the stream like they'd gotten used to doing a few months earlier. Was no longer an option since the cold weather had kicked in. Thus they have to make do with warming some water over the fire using Hollis's cooking pans. The main issue with this was that it took much longer, but was definitely worth it to stay clean. And just as sleeping outdoors in the autumn had proven to be quite tough for the coyote, but he braced himself for it and tried his best not to complain about any minor inconveniences. Though after a few weeks, he had not so gently suggested to the group that they should all purchase some bed warmers when in town. Despite laughing off the notion at first, the others had since come around to the idea, and now none of them could do without the warmers during the night. After getting cozy under the bed seats, Victor and Cedric were enjoying a quick moment, gazing at the white fabric above them whilst holding hands. I love our friends. This gang, they are just some of the most fun people I've met, and that I enjoy being around. It's going to be tough parting ways with them. We're in a philosophical mood, are we? You woke, you know the way I am late in the evening. It's been a long day. I guess, you're very right. They're the family younger me wish we had. Victor sighed. I can't believe the ball is only a couple of days away. It's been looming on the horizon for an entirety, and now, all of a sudden, here we are. Cedric smiled, wheeling over to make eye contact with the fox. Are you excited? To pay off all my debts to leave to begin a new life with you? You bet I am. As for the heist itself, well, we've never done something on such a big scale. It's going to be challenging, but I have no doubt we'll be able to pull it off brilliantly. I'll be honest, I'm a little terrified. You'd be a fool if you weren't, my dear. But this is just going to be pickpocketing on a larger scale, so to speak. I'm sure we'll all be up to the challenge. What terrifies me most is learning and remembering the upper class etiquette, frankly. You surely remember some customs from our childhood, yes? We don't, from our childhood days, don't you? Now, what did we say about dwelling on the past? Oh, not. It's merely related to the subject at hand. Victor gave his partner a wink. Sure it is. Well, do you? I suppose it's just I was always on the other end of things, witnessing these behaviors instead of engaging in them. Ah, yes, I hadn't considered observing it. Observing isn't the same as being directly involved. But I promise it's nothing to be worried about. Plus, a certain ex-nobleman will be giving you some lessons on all of that tomorrow. That's going to be really helpful. Suppose I see anyone I know. Well, supposing I see anyone I know. That would be terrifying. What would I even do? Victor chuckled, placing a hand on Cedric's shoulder and playfully shaking him. Sweetheart, it's a masked ball, remember? You won't recognize anyone, and they won't recognize you. That's the point. The coyote yawned loudly. Oh yes, so it is. I'm sorry, I'm not thinking straight. You just need a good night's sleep. Richard leaned over to blow out the last lit candle in the tent. I'll see you in the morning. Aye, good night, love. Good night, men like her. I gotta slap you. Despite it only being early December, there was always a Christmassy feeling in the air throughout Cedric's hometown. An event had begun. The churches always echoed with carols, and folks seemed to be in brighter spirits than usual. All that was missing were some white, snow-colored streets to complete this picturesque look. Surely it was only a matter of days before the first snowfall of the year reached the West Country. The sky had been overcast for days and had turned to a wintry pale white. A couple hours after sunset, a well-dressed young boy rushed along the familiar lantern-adorned streets. Much like Ridley had years earlier, he'd started working as a tailor's apprentice, and during the long and often boring shifts in the hope of opening his own shop one day. On this particular evening, he'd been tasked with delivering an outfit that had been made to measure for a rich client. He'd meticulously placed all items in the cylindrical box he was now carrying. The boy heaved a sigh of relief upon finally reaching the address he'd been given by his master. This shouldn't have been complicated, but he somehow managed to lose his way twice since leaving the shop. Lifting his right arm, he struck the door 3 times with a brass knocker. As he waited, he used the door scraper to the right of the stairs. Lifting his right arm, he struck. Lifting his right arm, he struck the door 3 times with a brass knocker. As he waited, he used the boot scraper to the right of the steps leading up to the home's entrance. Just as he was about to knock again, the door swung open and he was greeted by a young antelope. Good evening, sir. What can I do for you? Evening, ma'am. I have here a set of clothes to be delivered to one Master Lysander. This is the correct address, is it not? Lifting his arm, he struck the door 3 times with a brass knocker. As he waited, he used the door scraper to the right of the steps leading up to the home's entrance. Just as he was about to knock again, the door swung open, and he was greeted by a young antelope. Good evening, sir. What can I do for you? Evening, ma'am. I have here a set of clothes to be delivered to one Master Lysander. This is the correct address, is it not? Nancy smiled, nodding her head. You've come to the right place. Please come in. The boy took off his hat as he set foot indoors. Would you like me to take your coat? No need. I sight be staying long, I don't think. What's your name, my sweet? Nancy, sir. Mine's Jim. I'm of no higher rank than you. No need to call me sir. I'm sorry, sir. Jim. The two laughed. They were both evidently tired, and Nancy too couldn't wait to go home after yet another long day at Lysander's aunt's house. Just give me a moment. I'll inquire after Master Lysander. The maid briefly disappeared into one of the rooms, returning less than a minute later with a line. Ah, finally. Is this everything? Jim handed him the box. Hi, sir. All neatly packed. That will be all, I presume. Hi, sir. If anything doesn't fit, or if there's any sort of problem, let us know, and we'll get it fixed as fast as we possibly can. You better. Time is of the essence. It was supposed to be ready a week ago, since I must be setting off for Hillsford tomorrow afternoon at the latest. This is an event I simply must attend. I can only apologize for that, sir. Lysander smiled coldly. No matter, these things happen after all. Good evening to you, sir. Nancy, my parents are going to be visiting tomorrow. I'll have already left by then, so please remind them I won't be joining them in Scotland this year. Certainly, sir. Knowing that pair, they probably weren't paying attention each of the 3 times I told them. He turned around, heading back upstairs with a large box in his hands. Instead of entering his own room, he walked past it and into the adjacent chamber, which used to belong to Cedric back when the coyote was still living there. This had been left exactly as it was for months at Lysander's orders. The suits Cedric hadn't taken with him on the day he left were still hanging in the wardrobe, along with the neatly folded breeches and stockings in many of the drawers. The only exceptions were some items the lion himself had added, most notably the chessboard he had placed on the table in front of the gold-framed mirror. The very same chessboard the coyote had stolen, the white knight piece from a piece which had been proudly displayed at its center ever since the lion had gotten it back. Another new item hung on the wall opposite the mirror, a double portrait of Lysander and Cedric the lion had commissioned. In the painting, Cedric was seated in the foreground, with Lysander standing behind him, a hand placed on the coyote's right shoulder. A gesture the lion wouldn't have reserved for anyone else, not even his parents. A gesture would seem to hint at more than merely friendly affection. Despite such few changes, or perhaps because of them, it was as if this chamber had now become a temple dedicated to Cedric. Lysander shut the door behind him and placed the box on the bed. Pulling off the lid, and admiring its contents. An almost perverted grin covered his muzzle. This was exactly what he wanted. Gently, more so than the line needed, he lifted out the item core to his upcoming event attendance, a simple masquerade mask. To be continued. An autosave was created. Autosave has been created for you. Hello, and thank you for reading this fifth build for Project Newman's A Fall from Grace. This has been yet another lengthy build full of new backgrounds and illustrations. So we really hope you enjoyed reading, and we can't wait to share the rest of the story with you all. This novel is written by and composed by and illustrated by project developer Alex, with Grayson as relief coder, music programmer, and story designer. I've tried my hand at coding for these last two builds specifically. It's been fun figuring things out while trying to maintain a style AFFG has had so far. If anything crashes, you know who to blame. Plus, this time, we've had actual dialogue choices. In this VN, this visual novel's entire plot started. This entire visual novel's entire plot, start to finish, was conceived on two voice calls between Grayson and myself back in around March of 2022. We have had so much fun designing a story that utilizes Alex's gorgeous way of setting places and characters, and Gray's ability to yes, in, and VM plot over only two calls. This has been a passion project I have been so excited to be a part of and continue to be excited for the continuation of. A Fall from Grace represents more than just a visual novel. It's also the story of how Alex and I became best friends. Ever since the first message of "Hey, I love your art" on Twitter. Then following this, the idea for A Fall from Grace came out very quickly after Grayson offered me a place on the Project Newman team. A special thanks also to Mass, the chief editor, proofreader, and storyline aide for the project. Without Mass's help, we would not be able to release this or any of the previous builds to you now. And a big thank you to our coder Kamek for his own hard work on the third build, as well as for salvaging mine and Grayson's coding work into a visual novel that works from start to finish. Special thanks to Marcy of Eden's Reach for helping with certain elements of the coding, as well as a massive thank you to everyone in the Project Newman Discord server and our amazing moderators Akami, Butter, Gary, and Thunder. I hope you enjoy the OST written by Alex. No expenses were spared when Alex suggests a soundtrack based on English folk songs. Though I did sneak one track into the second build for the Soldier's March just based on a piece of music that Alex and I both adore. If you did enjoy this visual novel, be sure to follow us both on Twitter using the icons in the main menu. We also have a link to our Discord server here too. Please join if you enjoyed this visual novel. We would love to see you in our Discord community. Also consider following Project Newman on Itch.io as well. We also have a link on the main menu to our Patreon if you would like early access to both A Fall from Grace's builds as well as other Newman projects. We will post early script drafts, concept art, and character art on the Patreon too, so if you like what we're doing and want bonus content and early access, it's all there. Thank you all. Hope you enjoy Project Newman's. Alright, so these are the two other projects they're doing. Eden Waits and One Last Night. I do plan on doing both of these at one point. I don't know, maybe once these two games get a new update, because it's been a long time since either of these games have gotten updates. This one hasn't really gotten an update in about 2 years, and this one hasn't gotten an update in almost 2 years also. So I'm kind of waiting on those games to get new updates so I can decide whether to play them or not. But and plus, I think they might do some new stuff for Eden's Reach, like with the sprites. So yeah, that was a long read at the end there. So yeah. Alright, so we're up to date with A Fall from Grace for now. So I figured that Lysander would cancel his annual trip to Scotland with his parents. I mean, they masquerade. They think that that Lysander won't be there, but they're in for a big surprise. I mean, he's gonna be there. Yeah, but they I figured Lysander would cancel his trip if it meant him being able to find Cedric. So yeah, they about to be in some trouble. I think they're gonna get. I mean, you can just tell that this plan is going to fail. You know, with them anticipating this big mission, basically this big heist they're doing at this elite ball. You know, all these aristocratic people. So based on how tense everybody is, I have a big feeling it's just going to fail. Or at least something big is going to happen that will get in the way of them achieving what they're trying to do. And Lysander will probably figure out that Eric is there. I mean, Cedric is there. Mixing up characters from a different VN, Nevin. Anyway, so I think everything is going to go pretty bad next time. So I think one of the reasons why Victor is also doing this because he says that he owes some kind of a debt to I think to the hyena. What's his name again? Dion. Yeah. And Dion, when he spoke to Cedric, Dion said that Cedric owes him a big debt. So I wonder what that debt is. But anyway. So now we're up to date with the story. My thoughts on the characters. I like Cedric. I like that he's not this snobbish aristocrat that thinks that he's above everybody and just treat average ordinary people poorly. His father is very much someone who looks down on poor people and is mistrustful of them and just has absolute contempt for the lower classes. So I'm glad Cedric didn't grow up to be like his father. And Lysander, he's very much like Cedric's father and all that. He made very clear that he looks down on poor people. And I love Victor. I love him as a character. I mean, not love, but you know, I really enjoy his character. You know, he really loves Cedric, and he never forgot about Cedric. He kept thinking about Cedric. He always talked about Cedric to his fellow bandmates. You know, his fellow bandits. Can't speak. Anyway, he always spoke fondly of Cedric to his. He always spoke fondly of Cedric to his fellow bandits. So he never forgot about Cedric, and I like um, the Sunbear. See, he is very serious and about what he does, and he does his job very well. And the Doberman Blake, he's a blunt, crass type of guy, but he really does a lot of jokes. They're very crass. He's very blunt and honest, and that's what I like about him. I forgot the person's name, but he used to be an accountant. The person used to be an accountant, but got bored of it and wanted to do something else. I like him also. I mean, and the tiger, he's like a charming person also. The mannerisms he has, and him cooking, and him being a bartender. He cooks. He cooks good stuff for the bandits, and yeah, and who else? And last but not least, you got Dion, the leader of this group. He for his appearance, this big, brawny guy, 7 feet tall, hyena. He's very soft, soft spoken, and he's very flamboyant, and he's very, you know, he's more like aristocratic, and just have a proper etiquette to him. Whenever a new update comes out, I'll have it out for y'all as soon as I can. Now it's been about 3 months now since the last update, so it probably might be sometime this summer when a new update comes out. Maybe about a few more months, I guess. So that's all for now. So hope y'all enjoyed A Fall from Grace so far. Bye.